Okay, so I'm thinking of kind of doing this thing. This is something I've been kind of planning on maybe doing for a while, but we are at the first Thursday since I've thought of it. And the thing that I've thought of is basically, I don't know if this is going to be a every week kind of thing, probably more likely every 2 weeks or maybe once a month. I don't know, we'll kind of have to see what I feel up to, honestly, because part of the point of this is me not overwhelming myself so I can keep just getting stuff out there. But I'm dubbing this the first 30-minute Thursday. And I think the way that I'm going to kind of try and do a 30-minute Thursday is it's going to be a little bit different than the usual 10-minute days, obviously by the fact that it's going to be closer to 30 minutes. But I'm also going to be more lenient with myself for not hitting the 30 minutes too. So like with a lot of the 10-minute videos, it's more like I'm going to try and hit at least 10 minutes, but not do more than like 15. But the 30 minutes, I'm kind of fine with anywhere in the 25 to 35 range, I think. Maybe even a little bit over because it's just longer. We're definitely not going to go longer than 40 minutes, so I'll say that much. But yeah, so first 30-minute Thursday, something that I would feel like talking a little bit longer about than just 10 minutes. So I'm going to put a little bit more time and effort into it, and I might even also stop driving at some point so I can actually like sit down and like figure something out. But I kind of wanted to continue rolling the ball, I guess, since I've mentioned alters now, to take some time to kind of expand upon some kind of theory of mind stuff I've been kind of looking into for like what alters are and like how those relationships kind of model themselves, right? So something I kind of introduced a little bit before last time was this idea that I kind of started out by modeling alters. Not right away. The first thing I did was just try to list a bunch of different feelings I could recall that felt like distinct identities. And I just started there and kind of tried to give some sort of name that felt semi-resonant. After a while, I kind of started noticing a trend where a lot of them I could kind of express kind of like pairs of like shadows, basically, right? Where one was kind of the repressed side of the other and vice versa, right? And where inverses is definitely an interesting relationship to pay attention to. I don't think it's the only one. And it's honestly a more complex map than that, which of course it is. And if you kind of know anything about how like machine learning works, which is at least neural networks, they're based off of kind of how connections in our brain work a little bit. It makes sense that it's not just one distinct like yes or no thing, but more like everything is kind of modeled relative to everything else, right? And there's kind of layers of relating one thing to another. But yeah, so one of those things is contrast, right? Like looking at something and deciding that like something should be the inverse of something else versus comparison, kind of looking for like similarities and things where maybe you express part of an idea but not the full idea in the scope that you meant to, right? So this is going to get, honestly, I think pretty hard to delve into without me trying to give some concrete examples. So I'm not going to try and just like list every single alter that I know of. I have made a list, but I don't have that in front of me without stopping the recording. And I didn't write it down separate because I didn't feel like it, just to be honest. But yeah, so, and also I might not want to fully go into everything immediately on the internet right now, because some of them do feel more personal and close to home, and I feel like I got to kind of work up to talking about all those parts of me, you know. But some that I can talk about as some good examples is one of them I call Pepper. Okay, so Pepper is kind of like this version of me that's very oriented on being kind of like a provider type person for like, especially people that I care about, especially people who in some kind of way I feel like I'm like needing to take care of them in some way, right? This is a very almost like a familial kind of bond this one will be, and it is very responsibleness oriented, right? Like, you know, almost kind of parental. So that's like one part of me, and so yeah, that one's a thing that exists. Kind of on a flip side, there's like one that I call Nash, and that one is kind of like my hyper vitriol and like fuck you. Yeah, Nash contains a lot of my really strong animosity and anger, and like I'm gonna brutalize you. It's very rare that something ever actually gets acted on in that headspace, but it's a pretty intense one. It's very vitriolic, very anger filled. So that can kind of be one of the examples of kind of the disparity between vibes of those different parts of myself. Right now, everybody has like, you know, different moods, different parts of themselves that like, you know, like different emotions basically, right? But it's kind of like almost like it's a shift in mindset too, because it's like, you know, Pepper is a very understanding one, right? That's very like considerate of people, and puts themselves in other people's shoes, and tries to be understanding and like, you know, not jump to their own conclusions. Whereas Nash is like the complete inverse, just like, I don't give a fuck about any reason you have for anything. I don't have time to give a fuck. Fuck you. You have done a grievous wrong, and you should be punished and beaten to a pulp and like have your skin shredded off, right? Like it's so like on another note, here's one that's kind of a higher layer distinguisher. There's kind of ones that I call thesis and renaissance. Okay, so thesis is the part of me that's very, very like resolute on understanding things as logically as possible, right? Like very, very strong logical consistency. Like logic is basically the thing that I care about most out of everything. But it's also kind of to a point that's also like detached from ego a bit too, in a way. Like it's very like, because not all of the parts of me are like that. There's one I call calculus that's more like kind of egotistical about like being like a know-it-all and someone who like knows more than other people, right? And that one's one that also kind of got repressed kind of faster, because I think it's kind of lame to be that way overall. But that part does exist. But thesis is more like, it's not about proving being smarter than anyone. In fact, a lot of times the smarter strategy is not showing that, right? It can be very adaptive. But yeah, thesis is very like logical, deciphering oriented, whereas renaissance is kind of the flip side of that, where it's very intuition oriented and experiencing the moment oriented. Very, very don't think about it, because trying to overthink it isn't what you need right now. Just like intuition, good. Just vibe it out, and have fun. Renaissance is very have fun. Renaissance, sorry. I will say it also can be harder for me to not lose my train of thought the more I try and cycle between like these different ideas, because they're, you know, obviously it's pretty close to home, and sometimes trying to discuss it makes it hard to maintain one train of thought, because it basically I can feel myself getting pulled into different headspaces in the moment, and I have to kind of like wrestle that a bit, to not lose where I'm at. But yeah, let's do some more. Give me a second. Commando is a fun one to talk about. So that one is very like, the best way I can place that is like the feelings that I have to be the one who, it's honestly very like hero minded in some way, right? Like but like in a way of like, I have to be the one to do the thing. Like there's a thing that no one else will do, something that needs to be done, and I alone must be the one who carries that burden. And it's very lone wolf type shit. Like, only I can do this. I need to not be burdened by anyone around me, because it will only either bring pain to them or slow me down, right? Like it's very self-sacrificial, honestly. And sometimes it's a headspace I need to like really be careful of letting take too much. I don't want to say control. That was what I was gonna say, but it's more like, it's a rationale that's not that healthy. And a lot of times in reality, you need people's help. That's a thing that I can like acknowledge. But you know, it can be that could be a headspace that's very prone to these like grandiose self-narratives, where I'm meant to be like the one who does the thing. Like I don't know. Maybe some of you kind of already understand what I mean by that. It's definitely one that has a bit of an ego to it, but in like a self-sacrificing way. But that's also still kind of like a strong ego thing, you know, like only I can do this, no one else is capable of it, kind of thing. Or not even always that they're not capable, but like they shouldn't have to be the one to do it, right? A similar ballpark, and one that took me some time to differentiate, is one that I call Bunker. And this one is more about not necessarily like Commando, like actively striving to accomplish something, but Bunker is more about endurance, weathering whatever can be thrown at me. Like no matter what suffering I might endure, I can take it and I will take it. It's just like anchoring down, and like I am just going to take the beatings, kind of thing. You know, a lot of the times this is more metaphorical. I'm not literally like getting beat usually, right? But like, you know, things that are like really intensive, like emotionally, life-wise, like just not having any time to do things that I care about, and having to you know, locking in on like long work weeks where I'm not doing anything but just things that make me miserable, but like I have to keep pushing through. Bunker is definitely the headspace really in charge of making me persist. It's kind of got like a narrative to it, I guess, too, to make me more okay with it. I would kind of guess, you know, I'm kind of trying to like externalize it a bit, try to be like an external observer of my own internal experience, which is kind of weird and stuff, but I'm trying to kind of, you know, speak on it a bit. What else could I talk about? On another note, there's like one, here's a good one. This one is honestly just very like, social mask, laid back dude kind of thing. I call this one Shades, right? So it's literally like, just imagine like a dude like putting on sunglasses, like, what's up guys? You know, it's very, it's just being laid back, you know, like it's like, that's like the whole persona kind of a little bit. Just like, yeah, dog, like, what's up, you know, just that kind of vibe, you know. It sounds a little like funny and cringy, going over it like that, but you know, that's kind of what it is, right? It's nonchalance. That's really what it is. On kind of another ballpark, there's one I call Persona. And this one, the way it feels to be this one is also worth noting, besides just what it does. And it feels kind of borderline sociopathic a little bit. But Persona is all about just playing whatever role needs to be played. And honestly, I think this one was from a really early point of time in my life. And might be also kind of responsible for like why I have so many identities. Maybe not responsible. I'd have to kind of probably talk about some more specific things in terms of real causality. But this was an early prototype kind of thing, and it's a useful thing, right? It's kind of the catch-all. Detach and be whatever I should be. This one does a lot of roles. Like this is one that I kind of realized, one that I gave a specific name to was kind of, I think, more or less just a specific mode of this one. I call this, there's one that I call Mr. Business, right? And it's kind of like, it's basically being like the corporate guy, you know, like someone who would seem like they could be like a manager somewhere, or like someone who's like really like into the corporate stuff, you know. It's just really locked in on, because it's all playing that part, right? Like it's all just being this act of whatever role I need to play. And that's really the best I can really describe it. It's being an actor, basically, like full-fledged, like picking what the situation calls for, of what type of person I should act like for that, and just acting it, right? And it's a conscious thing, but like one that's also kind of an egotistical thing. It's weird. Yeah. Here's one that is not common, but it was one that was like intensive enough that like I think is, and also like, you know, I'm kind of also just picking stuff based on how much I think it's interesting to talk about too. But yeah, one of them I call Kill Switch, right? And this one is kind of like being on like that knife edge feeling where it's like I am ready at any moment to like it's you know, it's being like locked in and ready to do whatever must be done for a situation. Honestly, maybe this is getting a little too intense for for right now. And honestly, it's sounding more and more edgy the longer I'm going on a lot of these. So like maybe let's kind of dial it back a little bit. Some others I have like Iris, right? Iris is kind of just like playful, like kind of carefree, just like, and self-assured, you know, like it's like a like happy and like having fun kind of thing, and just it's different from Shades. Shades is like more of like trying to be nonchalant, whereas like Iris is just generally like, yeah, dude, whatever, you know, like it's more genuine, I guess is the best way to put it, right? Shades is more like being a cool guy as a front, and Iris is just like, it has more authenticity in it. I guess that's a good way to put it, right? Shades does not show many vulnerable things, whereas Iris is more just like okay with it, is a good way to describe that difference. So there's a lot of different overlaps here, but yeah, I really wanted to look at these things as kind of like a model of like functionality, kind of, right? Because it seemed like a lot of these kind of fit different like social functions for me, which would kind of make sense, because that's kind of the thing I struggled the most with whenever I was younger, is like different social situations called for being different kinds of people, basically. And that's kind of where that's kind of what I mean by the early persona thing, right? Like of just being whatever I needed to be. But the more that like, and it's kind of hard to say exactly which thing started where. Yeah, there's definitely also still a lot that like are more like to the core to talk about, but like I might not even ever talk about them, honestly, on this channel. Maybe I will. We'll have to kind of see. Like I can feel like a sense of like, if I if I go too much into some things, but I don't know. Other things worth talking about. I don't know. Sometimes they're hard to remember unless I can look at the list. Because there is a good bit of them. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we can start moving away from just my specific examples and kind of come back now to, I guess, what I wanted to talk about on kind of some of that theory of mind stuff, right? And this was something I was also breaking down with my friend who also has alters very recently. But I think, honestly, like really at the core of the alter experience is a blend of your perspective of different archetypes at one degree, right? Now, everyone has different perspectives of different archetypes, right? But then also combined with like a metacognition about how you might play that role, right? Now, of course, this is at least me talking on an element of it being less inherently dissociative. Although, that's something I experienced too, but it's not quite to the DID level. At least I don't think it would qualify as that. But I've looked at it, and it has a lot of these like markers of basically like how much like it impairs your life, and I don't think any of these things impair my life nearly enough to meet DID. Probably would still fall into OSDD because that's a other specified dissociative disorder, and that's honestly, like, if you look at the diagnostic criteria for it, it is kind of like a catch-all, honestly. I think it's not a very good label myself, but I don't know. I don't really know anything. I never did like a full psychology degree or anything. I'd kind of want to. I would, but I haven't. I just watch a lot of videos about psychology and like research stuff because I think it's interesting. But I have no credentials. So everything I say, take it with a grain of salt. It's just my ideas about stuff. But basically, though, like, I think it's kind of like the same way as, talking a bit before about ideas of like emerging patterns, whether you understand them or not, like emerging structures, right? I think a lot of archetypes are kind of basically emerging structures that like fit some sort of solution to some sort of problem in some sort of way, right? Like as an example of that, in terms of what I mean by like people archetypes, right, is you have like people who are like helper types, the function that they serve, the social reason why you would want to have helper people is because they help people, like they look out for people, they're caring, like it obviously provides a very strong social good. And so that archetype exists as something that is the solution to that, right? Like it's got the elements that are necessary for doing that, but maybe has wiggle room in ways that can look for the things that don't really matter for that function being served, And I think a lot of the times alters kind of do manifest sort of somewhat as those social archetypes of like types of people that you would encounter, right? So part of it is also then molded by your perspective of what those archetypes mean and what they look like, and what that also looks like for you in particular. Like if you're imagining you, the person who is in this situation with the background you have, with the resources and situation you have, in that type of archetypal role, what you would do in that situation. Obviously it's kind of modulated by some other things, but more or less, like, I think that's kind of how alters manifest. And then it's like the metacognition about what that role would look like for you. Like you're using your mirror neurons in your head to like envision yourself being that person, basically, right? And there's a lot of research that's interesting that shows that, like, the more you're able to envision being a person, the more you can kind of just make it happen, and your brain kind of figures out the rest of the steps, right? That's why kind of like having an idea of who you want to be is usually more effective for making change than just trying to identify the changes that you want to make, right? Because if the changes don't line up with the person who you feel like you are, a lot of the times they're not going to stick. So a lot of the best ways to make changes in your life, if you feel like there's changes you need, is to really ask yourself also what kind of person you want to be, right? And how much you're willing to commit to the reality of being that person. And if you are, and you can like envision yourself that that's someone who you're trying to become, that's usually a lot easier than just envisioning the steps themselves, right? semi talking out of my ass because like I don't have like the thing to point to, but I am certain that there was like studies on that I saw. So you should look that up if that's something that appeals to you. But yeah, that's kind of my theory for like the alter thing, because you know, if you look at like the stuff I talked about before of like the parallel processing stuff and like neural models and stuff, right? Like we are very like pattern oriented and parallel processing oriented, right? So basically these different ideas of what it means to be different versions of ourselves, they kind of all live in there, I think, you know, like different possibilities of what if I was this person. And then the more that you kind of are exploring being those different kinds of people and allowing yourself to be those different versions, I think is what creates the alter experience a little bit. That's my idea, at least. Now, obviously, whenever it comes to the intensity in which people end up, you know, having things like DID specifically and stuff, right? Where it's like so strongly like negatively affects you, makes you act in like such contradictory ways and negative ways, and you have such strong like memory loss between the different alters and stuff. Like I think that you know, that's basically like, you know, you're kind of being forced into those positions of like having these to like reconcile these like contradictions of the types of people you need to be in different situations from being a really traumatic upbringing. That's usually what you see in a lot of them, like really traumatic upbringings and having to face a lot of like contradictions of who they believe themselves as a person to be. And because of that lack of reconciliation and how early it happens too, and like the dissociation, it locks on hard, and then it creates like actual like, you know, I need to like double check my facts on this, but I'm pretty sure that like you can like almost like in the brain like see that like different like areas are almost like more segmented off than like the average brain, because like they're more like modally clustered, like distinctly, instead of like it being like as much of just a spanning network. Like they're more like closed off. Like imagine you take like a big old room and you like subdivide it with more walls. Not totally. I also could totally be 100% talking out of my ass on this, but I thought I remembered saying that at one point, but I could have also just made that up, because that also happens sometimes. So if I'm totally wrong on that, my bad. But either way, you know, in terms of like emergent structure wise of like, you know, if we move away from the hardware discussion of what it looks like in the brain and just talk about like even the software side of just how that emerges as behavior and stuff, it kind of fits that like that idea basically of, instead of like having just one me who does everything, like you're breaking up like different functions basically that serve different goals, you know. And I think that makes sense. So that's kind of the way I've been looking at it and breaking it, because I was trying to figure out like I wanted to kind of think about models for why different people have different alters, because I've met a good few people, and I started seeing some trends in a lot of people where like a lot more people kind of have semi and alter experience than others. And like the thing that seems like it happens in a lot of the people that I'm interested in talking to, especially, right? Like the people who I get along with, a lot of them are like, yeah, I kind of feel like I have that too. It's just like I didn't bother giving names to it, or you know, it's just like that kind of thing. Or like they're there, but like I guess I just never really explored that thought that deep, you know. But like, you know, a lot of people I would talk to, it's like I kind of feel that too, and it's interesting. And I don't think it's going to be an everyone thing. I think almost everyone can have at least those like separations of like I guess contradiction of like things they need to be, that exists, but you know, that not everyone, it's like not everyone's gonna like need to like put a different like sense of feeling onto it, like that it's like a whole like different version. It's just like, oh, that is me but feeling this way, and me but feeling this other way, right? Whereas to me, like, I don't know, it does feel like it just makes more sense looking at it in a more distinctive group, I guess. Yeah, I don't know, it's fun to think about. This is first 30-minute Thursday, and honestly, I think I did pretty good on time. I don't know how often I'm going to do this. That's going to be one I'm going to have to kind of figure out as I go, so I don't overly exhaust myself and start dreading things, because like, oh no, a whole 30 minutes instead of just 10. What am I going to do? But yeah, I think this was a subject that deserved me talking kind of a bit longer about. So if you enjoyed, make sure you like and subscribe.